Delighted to welcome back our next speaker to Fintech North, Barry James. Barry's spoken at several of our events in the past, and I always sort of describe Barry as one of those people who's kind of thinking a little bit further ahead. He's into whatever's coming next, and so he seemed like the obvious speaker for us to invite today when we were looking to make sure we covered crypto and the metaverse. So Barry, good to have you back. Thank you. And do you want to come and talk to us about these fascinating topics? Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. Great to be here. It's great to see, so many entrepreneurial people from the industry. But yeah, Julian was just referring to some of the sort of history. I'll come on to that in a minute or two. Who's Barry and where does he come from and all of that. I can't help thinking back to a talk I gave about 7 years ago over in the University of Manchester Business School. And the question I asked was, can you imagine a world without banks? Can you imagine a world without banks? And the reaction was almost precisely the same. You could have heard a pin drop. And what we've been seeing since then is a really interesting sort of development. And obviously there's a lot of controversy over things like Bitcoin and initially over things like blockchain and so on. And I'm in a really privileged position of having my feet in both worlds. So my first job was with the newest bank in Europe at the time, the only new bank for a very long time. I think it might have been 100 years. Gyrobank. Who remembers Gyrobank? Yeah.
It's a little bit quiet at the back.
It's a bit quiet at the back. I thought it might be. Yeah, that was my first job. I worked for what's now HSBC for a while, and that was 3 decades ago. And so that's a huge amount of change, and I sit in a privileged position now, with, as I was just saying to someone, 1 foot in the old and 1 foot in the new, and privileged to see some of the things that are coming down the track. I was also one of those people who was really, really annoying. Still am, I think. But back in the early 90s, when you mentioned modems to people, they asked you what they were. And modems used to sing to us. Do you remember when modems used to sing to us? It's showing your age if you do, that noise that they made. And telling everyone that this wasn't just, some kind of fad. This wasn't just for geeks. This was going to go mainstream. In fact, it was going to be the mainstream. And today I'm going to talk about a change which is, I believe, similar to that. I believe we're on the cusp of a new era. And the cusp of a new era, both in fintech and beyond. So I'm going to talk about the road ahead. We'll get onto that in a little bit. Both in payments, in fintech, and beyond. As I've already said, I'm going to talk about why and how we're entering a new era in fintech. And at the end, I'm going to give you a call to arms, because look, the future is made by those who turn up. You turned up today, so it's a good start. But the future is made by those who turn up, those who are in there. And what shapes us as a species? Well, Darwin taught us it's our environment. We're rebuilding our environment. If you think about it, you spend most of your waking hours, certainly most of your working hours, in what is now a digital environment. And that is shaping us. It's shaping our culture. And it's doing it without a lot of thought. So that's the shape of what I hope to get through in the next a little less than 20 minutes. I'm going to try and leave some time for questions, so please do have some at the end. So the British Blockchain and Frontier Technologies Association is designed to do just what I've said, but to enable the scanning of the horizon, the joining of the dots, the joining of the old and the new. And bbfta.org is out there. Come and join us. We'd love to have you. We'd love to see you. I was just talking about something else exciting. I'm a small part of the Centre for Fintech at the University of East London. One of what I think will be a whole stream of new initiatives within the academic sector. I'm shortly to be entrepreneur in residence there, as well as an advisor to the strategy board. And we need one of these in the north. I was saying this to someone earlier on. Actually, look, the world's becoming more decentralized in many ways, and never mind leveling up. We should be in there, centres like Manchester and Leeds and the rest of the north. So let's see what we can do about that. Part of my history is I've never worked in the FCA. I've never worked for the FCA. I've worked on the FCA. So part of my history was as a champion of Fintech when it was back then 10 years ago called crowdfunding in its roots. And the regulator then had no remit whatsoever, none, for innovation. Happy to see it as risk, happy to ignore it or at best or close it down at worst. I wrote this article basically saying we should not be doing this, we should be running in the opposite direction as a country. This was in August of 2012. In fact, we're going to have a 10-year anniversary in August, aren't we? And saying we should be doing the opposite. How are we going to do that? Well, we need to create an innovation unit within the regulator. This was 20 months before finally getting it, over a year before the idea was taken seriously, which took a lot of time and work. And there's the timeline. So the innovation unit, you all know, and I'm sure are familiar with in the FCA. It's been copied around the world. When I spoke to Ron Khalifa the other day, I think it was 58 countries now have an innovation unit largely patterned on ours. And the other thing that I'm really excited about right now, and please do come and talk to me about this later, because it's folks like you I want to be talking to about this, is fintech circles. Because I believe we can and should help lead the world in fintech. And there's a huge opportunity to do that. And one of the things I'm already doing and have been doing for some time is bringing together circles of fintech companies that are complementary to one another, can work together and can gain huge advantages in all sorts of areas by doing that. So please come and chat to me about fintech circles if you think that's something you'd like to do. So we're going to talk about the road ahead, but let's talk first about the status quo. You can see there that this is where we are. And again, I find myself back a little bit in my old role of looking from the outside in at the FCA, the Bank of England, and what's happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening globally, because fintech is going global. There's no two ways about that. And I'm not just talking about crypto. I'm not just talking about metaverse. I'm talking about fintech. I'm talking about payments. I'm talking about all the rest is going global. You heard it here first if you haven't heard it already. But at that time, we've got someone heading the FCA telling the House of Commons Committee, we're in a world where we're putting more grit into the system. At a time when America has woken up and is realizing that they themselves will get left behind if they don't take an opportunity to lead the world. And let me say clearly, and let this message go across, I am talking to the FCA. It's time to get our act together. We're falling behind. We've had the Khalifa review, and it was great in many ways. And we've been resting on our laurels, and it's time to get moving again. We don't have a lot of time if we're going to lead the world, or even help lead the world. And we have that capability. It's time to get our act together. We don't have time to be putting grit in the system and slowing things down. We need to be getting moving. Here's why. So this is the overtaking lane. Until very recently, America was way behind. And I'm talking now about CBDCs. Everyone know what CBDC is? Put your hand up if you're familiar with a CBDC. Okay, central bank digital currencies. What are they? The digital dollar, the digital pound, the digital euro, right? None of those per se exist at the moment, but they're being worked on. And a time scale of 2 to 5 years, depending on who you talk to. The digital yuan, it exists. It's rolling out. It's rolling out in China. And it's rolling out, and it is going to transform the Belt and Road project, where China has reach across the world, particularly across the old Silk Road countries. It's got a huge audience. It's already up and running. It's integrated with the likes of WeChat and Alibaba. They are best part of a decade ahead of us. Certainly a best part of a decade ahead of the rest of the world. And America's been slow to respond. So they clearly thought for a while that they could just ignore this and it would go away. And it's not going to happen. So this picture is, you see all those happy smiling faces? This is President Joe Biden dragging, kicking and screaming various people together when he made his executive order on the digital dollar, central bank digital currency. That is in train. It's intended to move at speed, weeks and months, not years. And it goes on. It has stirred up, as you might imagine, a huge controversy and a lot of activity. Because, let's see what the next slide is. How many people are familiar with stable coins? Good. Okay, that's helpful. For those of you who aren't, now's a great time to get your head around it. Get an app. Stop playing with these things. It's really going to matter, right? I guarantee within a year you'll be glad you did. Okay, from a career point of view and from other points of view as well. So stable coins are digital coins, bit like Bitcoin, bit like Ethereum or whatever, but they are tied to the value of the base coin. So Tether is tethered to the dollar, and so on. And this is the US Secretary of Treasury pushing for stable coin regulation by the end of this year. Why? Well, what we've just been talking about in terms of CBDCs and Biden's action has stirred up the entrepreneurial community, the banking community, the hornet's nest across the pond there. And what would America's first thought be? Well, where's the entrepreneurs, and how do we turn this into a business? And stable coins are rather like CBDCs, if you look at it that way, but issued by a private company. And this is where the regulation is going to come in. And starting, well, it's actually just about there in America. And this is more recent. What's the date there? Let's just see. This is as recently as 7th of June, so a couple of weeks ago. Senators coming forward with regulations that, in effect, the effect of these regulations is to take away the one thing that has been holding a lot of this back, and that's the fear of being classed, of your coin as being classed as a security. I mean, if it's a security, it should be classed as a security. If it looks like a security, maybe it should be. But what this is going to do is create a class of stable coins. They're calling them ancillary assets, right? That you can own, you can take away on your wallet, can live on your phone. You don't need necessarily. You might want a bank account, but you don't need it. This is not a world that's 5 years away or 10 years away. This is a world that is a couple, well, actually it's here now, in part. I was paid for a project I did recently in stablecoins. I converted them into pounds. No problem. That's becoming increasingly common. Increasingly, fintech teams, certainly any that are anywhere near the junction between old and new, are typically global. They're born global. So, that kind of thing just comes absolutely naturally. But we're seeing very fast movement now not because of the merits or demerits, but because of the global nature of what's happening, what China is doing, and so on. And did you know that at the end of this month, we will have a euro stablecoin backed by full reserves, available for use, and that comes to you from an American company. So isn't that interesting? So there's going to be a digital euro, and hopefully your mind is beginning to whir a little bit on the possibilities of that and the implications of that for payments and so on. This isn't next year. This is next month, right? But that's coming from Circle. It's being issued under New York's BIT license. It's going to be global. It does affect us here. And before very long, and don't quote me on this, the same will happen for the pound. How do I know? I know. And the only question is, will the FCA get its act together finally so that it can be based here, or will it be based somewhere else in the world? Will it be based in New York? Will it be based in Singapore or Dubai, or one of the many other centres that are now competing for fintech talent? And there's a slide just to give you a rough idea by city, startup hubs. We've got London with 188, which looks very respectable, doesn't it, in there? Unless you add up all the other American cities, which gives you 437 just from the ones on there. So come on Leeds, come on Manchester, come on North. So that's the status quo. That's where we are now. Where are we going? I don't know whether you've noticed, but you can now, certainly if you're in the USA, I'm not quite sure when it launched or when it's due to launch here, but you can now move crypto around with your PayPal account. It's here. it's now. You can do anything you want with it. In very much the same vein as Libra. So actually, all that furore over Libra, it seemed to go away, but it's coming back in all these different forms because it's time. And PayPal has been granted a full bit license from the New York Department of Financial Services. First company to convert a conditional bit license to a full bit license, and so on, which is enabling it to do this. So as we're seeing the road ahead, central bank digital currencies, it was over a year ago now that the Bank of England, in case you'd missed it, announced what Rishi Sunak quickly dubbed the brick coin. So the project is ongoing. We will have ours. They're talking now about the second half of this decade, but that's liable to be overtaken for the reasons I've just talked about. Stable coins, they're already with us. We're going to have a sterling stable coin. My prediction would be within weeks rather than months. You heard it here first. And they are fundamentally global money. It is a fundamental change. And regulators are still struggling with it to this day. I was in Vienna on the day that the Financial Action Task Force of the UN unrolled the strategy for containing, this is about 3 years ago, okay, thereabouts, for containing crypto. And it has, to a large extent, and made it more manageable, but it hasn't taken away the fact that this is, going to go global one way or another. So, ladies and gentlemen, I see quite a number of faces in the room that this isn't difficult, a lot younger than mine. Right, that's not terribly difficult. You're the next generation, right? And this is FinTech, the next generation. And this time it's global. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to lift your eyes to the hills, to lift your eyes to the horizon of what's happening and, grab onto that. Okay. Why are the retail banks under threat? Well, they are. Well, here's an example. I spent 2 hours on the phone with that bank, who I couldn't name, but you can see for yourself. In a not untypical scenario, talking to, first of all, an operative who didn't know what she was doing, couldn't answer a question, couldn't deal with the situation. A perfectly ordinary £2,000 transaction between two companies. The infrastructure is a big problem, but really the infrastructure isn't the problem. The problem is that banks still think technology is the answer, and we all know technology is the enabler of the answer. And banks are still have a dead weight of history, legacy systems, and so on. And I tell you now, banks will exist in 5 years and 10 years and probably 20 years and 30 years time, but they're not going to look like they do now. Certainly retail banks. Well, I won't ask for a show of hands this time because it'll be probably everyone has got an account with Monzo or Revolut or one of the new banks. Yeah, plenty of people. I don't even have to ask you about the customer experience. I don't even have to ask you whether they're going to contact you, which this NatWest didn't, to tell us that the account had effectively been frozen. You'll know instantly. So, as it looks at the moment, it looks very much like, to me, like the banks will be serving the corporate sector in the future. It's finding it harder and harder to cope with retail. So, I'm going to leave this question hanging in the air a little bit for you to think about, ask questions over. But what if there was a stable coin, a pound, a sterling stablecoin? What if it was ready to go? What if it, was just waiting for the ink to dry on the paper? Moving to a different subject entirely, what's this space? This isn't a stable coin, it's BIPs. It's a Manchester fintech firm who are long-serving P2P platform who have something called BIPs. Worthy of your attention. I'm moving on. So what if, going forward, small groups of complementary fintechs that could each complement each other work together to take on the rest of the world? Perhaps that would look very much like fintech, the next generation, which is going to be global, it's going to be collaborative. And my call to arms, which I promised you at the end, is, I feel almost like history repeating itself. I'm back in 1992-ish or 3, and when I was saying to people, this internet, let me explain what it is. I'm not saying that's this room, but those people back then, let me explain what this is, because it's going to be really important. Well, why? Well, we're going to have a new environment. We're going to have a new environment. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Barry, for painting that picture of the kind of the virtual world, the virtual currencies, and some of the challenges that go around that. I wonder, we'll take some audience questions in a second, but I know from sitting in some sessions myself over recent months that when you talk about the metaverse, some people have that fundamental question of like, what is that? What is it? So can you just, for those in the room that might have that question burning in their mind, as I have done in the past, just explain, because well, you do it, not me.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I meant to cover that more fully. I just got, it was really interesting doing the research for this, by the way. Thank you all. Spent quite a lot of time bringing some of that stuff right up to date. But you're already in it. You're already in the metaverse. And I know you've probably seen Mark Zuckerberg zooming around and entertaining himself with cartoon characters and his friends in a digital space, and that'll be part of it, and that's how people tend to think of it. But you're already in it. You're already in the Zoomiverse, right? Whether you use Zoom or you use the Microsoft equivalent or you use something else, COVID brought us here. Well, this is the first face-to-face meeting I've had in a long time, but I'll be having many more Zoom meetings tomorrow and the day after, and so will you. So we're in the foothills of that new digital environment, and it's not going to be. We tend to think of these things as a discontinuity, so that we're going to stop doing this and start doing that. We're not going to do that. We've already started doing that. We're already in the Zoomiverse, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get more immersive, and it's going to get so yes, in a few years' time, when we have a meeting like this, it may well be, some of them will be virtual, and we'll feel as if we're there. We're probably not going to be wearing those horrible headsets and so on, but it's not discontinuous. We're already there, and where the rubber hits the road as far as money and fintech is concerned, is those that world. It's kind of a bit like the web. Back when I was talking about it back then, it will have e-commerce. It won't just have e-commerce. It will have coins. It will have. You'll be able to transact freely, so this is all part of the same future.
Yeah. Thanks. I guess quite a few of us in the room are going to have kids. The debate I have with my kids on a Saturday when they get their pocket money is, what is that thing you want to spend it on that I can't see and touch because it's in a game somewhere, and they want to buy coins, they want to buy an extra item or bit of sort of clothing for their avatar within within a game, and I think that's where it's probably most visible. It's with the young people. Someone said at a session I was at in Bristol recently, while we were all on Zoom during the pandemic, all the kids were playing in the metaverse, and that sort of brought it to life. Does anyone have a question for Barry? Something they want to ask? Pavel, do you go first?
So, first of all, thank you, Barry. Great speech. I'm
Thank you.
Pavel from Player from Poland, and just one comment and one question. The comments about the stablecoin pound. As a matter of fact, 1 hour ago there was an announcement by Tether that they will issue a stablecoin pegged 1-to-1 to British pound.
That was an hour ago.
Yeah, an hour.
Things move really slowly in this space. Have you
Yes.
noticed?
So
Tell me more.
Yeah, a bit late. We need to update the slide there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they will do it in July this year.
Yeah.
But the question is regarding CBDC, and for instance, if there is a CBDC euro, what will be the role of retail banks in your opinion?
Okay, so if we've got a CBDC, do we need retail banks? And I suppose the technical answer is if you look at the functionalities that you need, the answer increasingly is no. The ace used to be the customer relationship. Well, yeah, let's not talk about that because, private grief and all that. As banks, if I was a banker, we gave that away. We teched that away. Lending was our final ace, and PayPal offer my businesses loans all the time. Doesn't go through a process. The AI takes care of the risk. But the real killer is the one that I've said as far as retail banking. How are the banks ever going to, get far enough away from the problems they have with their focus on tech and their business model to compete? And I think we're past the point of no return, probably. Thanks, Pavel.
Hi, Ray. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very nice. Nice to hear. My name is Mahmood. I'm from eToro.
Sorry, could you speak up a little bit?
My name is Mahmood. I'm from eToro. My question is more around CBDC and cryptocurrency as a concept. So historically, or even right now, the concept of cryptocurrency is unregulated, decentralized, and that's the basic, the fundamental behind any cryptocurrency. CBDC, which is going to be a regulated stablecoin issued by a central bank, how do you see this in that kind of a framework where normal cryptocurrency, by its definition, needs to be unregulated and decentralized?
That's an excellent question. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 categories rather than 2, actually. So we've got, as you say, the cryptocurrencies, unregulated, because they are, and that's where they grew up. We've got coming along the central bank digital currencies. They are effectively digital fiat currencies. So, issued by, let's say, the Bank of England, the Fed in the USA, with all of the things that you would expect of that. And they may well be centralized. They may not be decentralized. They may be centralized but have leverage, and if you're wise, probably leverage in some of the advantages of digital coins, i.e. you can take them away in a wallet, and they're ultimately fractionalized, so you can have micropayments and so on, and you can have instant payments and instant settlements and so on. In the middle is the really interesting category then, which is the stable coins, which is the coins that are stable with respect to a particular currency, a pound, a dollar, or whatever, and well, they're going to be regulated. And those coins may not be, don't need to be centralized. They can be decentralized. I haven't looked at the architecture of circles, digital euro, but I know of at least one that is decentralized. So there's a kind of mix of different things going on there. One is state issued, one is the opposite, unregulated and not issued by the state, and regulated in the middle. And by the way, I didn't make the point as clearly as I should have done. We've passed the Rubicon in America. The Act that I referenced on one of the slides there has made it clear that stablecoins are going to be they're going to be treated as commodities within the regulatory regime in America and de facto in the world. Does that help?
Okay, I was gonna stop us there actually, just so that we get to lunch in a reasonable time. I can see people want to talk to Barry about other stuff. You're going to be around at lunchtime, yeah? Yeah. Barry, thank you ever so much. Great to hear from you. We're going to hear from PayAir. So Pavel and Peter, who as I mentioned earlier, have come over from Łódź in Poland, following on from the visit that we made there. I guess it was last month or the month before now. So guys, it's great to have you here. Come and grab a mic each. Your slides are on screen, and this will be about 10 minutes, guys. Then we'll break in for lunch. Okay.
Hello everyone, we know you're all waiting for lunch, so we'll try to wrap it up as much as we can. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you Julian and Fintech North for inviting us here. As Julian mentioned, some of you have been in Łódź, in Poland. So a few things about Łódź. Łódź is a city in central Poland. It's the third biggest city in Poland, with the population of 700,000 people. So to put it into perspective, this is around 1.5 times the size of the city of Manchester. It is centrally located with easy access from different airports and around 90 minutes drive from Warsaw. We have around 100,000 students in Łódź and many international IT companies here. And we're located, still place with me. We're located in the European Union, so we have to follow all the regulations. And what is really important is that Łódź is called the Polish Manchester because of our history connected with textile industry. All these industrial buildings and factories has been turned into beautiful new buildings. So if you're ever in Łódź, let us know. We can guide you around. But why am I talking about Łódź, Pavel?
So the reason of us talking so much about Łódź is that over 3 years ago, we opened an office of PayAir in our city of Łódź. And PayAir is a Swedish fintech company operating in payments business. And we are on the market more than 10 years right now. We did quite a lot of payments projects, and we did developed a lot of products for our customers. Speaking of our customers, most of the customers are tier 1 banks from Nordics and Baltics, and also obviously card schemes, MasterCard, Visa, and Amex. Unfortunately, there is no Discover logo here, so there's a place. Especially MasterCard is our strategic partner, so we are very, very closely cooperating with them. What are we doing? What type of products we are building? This is a very top level overview for you. So first of all, obviously we are fully PCI DSS compliant, and our products can be categorized into 2 groups. The first one is for PSPs. And here we are talking about e-commerce digital wallets. Our latest child is Click-to-Pay implementation, SRC, as you know. It's like an insider's name for that. And as we speak right now, Click-to-Pay is being rolled out to one of the biggest PSP in Sweden, implemented by us, and we are cooperating with them to do it. On the other hand, we are doing stuff for issuers. Here we are talking about products mostly connected to tokenization of cards, but also mobile wallets, Google Pay, Apple Pay, all the pays. Yeah, but in the heart of our company are people, obviously, and here we are. We have a great team of experienced and skilled software engineers with the deep and vast fintech knowledge. So we are talking about different types of developers, backend, frontend, mobile. We are super focused on quality, so we have a dedicated QA team as well and DevOps. Probably some of you heard this term as well. And on the top of that, we do have project managers and product owners who are taking care of all the businesses run as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, so we're quite lucky. We have a nice, huge team working with us for quite a few years now. But we know it can be a problem. Software engineers are scarce. We see problems with recruitment and attrition. We see that there is a lot of talents, especially on saturated markets such as UK. The salary expectations are rising really fast. And also, when we look at fintech ecosystem, it is really complex. So, we have to take care about regulations. We have to take care about security. Our engineers have to have high fintech knowledge, and finding a software engineer with fintech knowledge is as rare as finding a unicorn.
Yeah. So it's not that difficult to find a unicorn in the woods, to be honest, because we do have a statue of unicorn in the city center, which you can see on this lovely photo here. While we are talking about the problems, that Piotr just mentioned to you, because we would like to introduce you to our offer, which is Fintech Software Hub. This is the place where Fintech meets software, and this is the service place for you if you want to grow your existing software team that is building Fintech products, or you want to just start a new one. You have an idea, but you don't have a team. So how can you do that? Just 4 very easy steps, straightforward. The first one, as you've seen, is just come and talk with us. We are here the full day. We will be on the networking session in the evening, and of course, if you want to come over to Łódź, we will be delighted to give you a tour. So once we talk with you and we know your needs and requirements, we can start building the stuff for you, so you can focus on other very important business aspects, which is like PR, sales, marketing, finance, legal stuff. There's like a whole layer of non-development stuff to be done, as you all know, and ultimately we can meet in this happy pleasure place, win-win situation, when you will save quite a lot of money and time with us, and we will be happy to build a product for you.
So don't be a stranger. Come over, talk to us, reach out to us on LinkedIn. I'm Piotr.
And I'm Paweł.
And we'll be happy to build the next fintech product with you guys. So
thank you.
We're here for the rest of the day. We're here over the lunch. Feel free to open and see.